I know math is not the Conservative Party of Canada's forte.
And the budget will balance itself.
So,
housing market, but the difference between our side and theirs is they do not have a plan to achieve that reality. Mr. Speaker, the measures that they are putting forward include measures that would raise taxes on home buildings, make it more difficult to build homes in communities, and actually cut funding for homes, for programs that are supporting home building today. We have new measures that create tax-free opportunities for young people to save up for a down payment, new measures that help young people establish a credit score, and new measures that reduce their monthly mortgage costs. We will do what it takes to solve the housing crisis. I wish they'd join us.
The honourable member from Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this Prime Minister, car theft in Canada is completely out of control. 2 in 5 Canadians have either had their car stolen or know someone who has. Last week in Victoria, a repeat offender was arrested 3 times in 3 days for stealing cars. The police in Victoria had to put out a statement, and they laid the blame for this on the Liberals' failed Bill C-75. Will this Justice Minister listen to the police and reverse their soft-on-crime Bill C-75?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I've got a lot of respect for that member. He's my critic. He served on the Justice Committee with me for a number of years. What I don't have respect for is the instructions he gets from his leader on how to vote. When we have legislation in the chamber that deals with, in the fall economic statement, tackling the money laundering and the organized crime links to auto theft, he's instructed to vote against. Before even reading the document that is the budget 2024 and what it contains with respect to addressing auto theft, increasing maximum penalties, dealing with the link between using youth and organized criminality, and tackling more money laundering, he was told to vote against yet again by his leader.
The honourable member from Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, the Justice Minister's own vehicle was stolen 3 times in the last 3 years. The Liberals are not fixing the problem. Conservatives have a private member's bill in the House right now that establishes serious jail time for repeat car thefts. Mr. Speaker, this individual in Victoria was arrested 3 times in 3 days. He pushed a woman out of her car to steal her vehicle. He drove off and caused a collision. It's time in Canada that we crack down on repeat violent auto theft. Conservatives will do it.
Hey. The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, that member knows that repeat violent offenders are already dealt with by our bail regime. He voted in favour of that. You should also know that when C-75, the very bill
I'm going to ask members, please, to allow the minister to listen to his question. I'll ask you to settle down. The honourable minister from the top.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. That member knows and should know that on the bail reform bill that he actually voted in favor of, it tackles serious violent repeat offenders, which would include those who use serious violence in committing an auto theft. What he should also realize is that the very bill he impugns, Bill C-75, when that was before this chamber in the 42nd Parliament, we promoted an augmentation, an increasing.
How many scandals do you think Trudeau has had? I have another video over here showing how many, and it is a lot. And I think shame needs to be brought back into Canada because he has no shame anymore. And I think it just trickles down to everyone underneath him. And that's what's really frustrating about Trudeau. And as far as an election is concerned, obviously there should have been one a year ago. But do you think it'll really be in October 2025? Because his steam, like all he has to do is smile and for the camera, go on his vacations. There's going to be a new love in his life coming up, probably, because he has to, because he needs to take attention away from himself. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. Let's go back to the video.
In the penalty that is available for auto theft. He and all of his colleagues voted against. What I would prefer is some collaboration and a bit less hypocrisy.
The honourable member from Halifax West.
Mr. Speaker, our government is making historic efforts to solve Canada's housing crisis. Not only do we need to build more homes, we need to build them faster, and Canada must change the way we build those homes. Can the Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities tell this House and Canadians the new measures introduced to solve Canada's housing crisis?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure Infrastructure
Mr.
and
Speaker,
Communities.
I thank the honourable member for her question and for her advocacy for housing supports, particularly for the most vulnerable across the city of Halifax.
I know math is not the Conservative Party of Canada's forte.
And the budget will balance itself.
So,
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to share that we have put forward a plan to solve Canada's national housing crisis. It includes new measures that will help make it easier to build more homes by reducing the cost, eliminating the barriers, including freeing up more public land. It includes more measures to help young people save up for a down payment and to reduce their mortgage costs. And it also includes measures to support those who cannot afford to have a roof over their head, including a recent investment of $11 million to build more housing for persons with disabilities and seniors. We're going to continue to make the investments to solve Canada's housing crisis.
The honourable member from Courtenay, Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, last week the BC police chiefs told us it is deadly street drugs laced with fentanyl that is killing thousands, not the diversion of safer supply. They clearly advise that preventing people from using drugs in public and preventing toxic drug deaths requires more, not fewer safe consumption sites. BC has listened to the police call for more tools to deal with the public use of illicit substances. When will the Liberals ignore Conservative disinformation, recall the expert task force, and formulate a comprehensive plan to end the toxic drug crisis? When?
The Honourable Minister of Mental Health and Addictions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for being a collaborative partner in addressing the toxic drug supply and the tragic overdose deaths that are taking over this country from day to day. We're committed to a comprehensive, collaborative, and evidence-based substance policy approach. We appreciate the excellent work of the expert task force on substance use, whose mandate was to provide advice to the government on a renewed Canadian drugs and substance plan. It's important that the actions be informed by independent advice of experts and evidence. I've asked the department to reestablish an expert advisory committee, and work is underway.
The honourable member from Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want to know how a deportation order, one upheld by a federal court, of a person convicted of 5 criminal charges and who didn't like to attend much school despite being in Canada on a student visa, somehow still managed to get ministerial intervention to stop his removal. Did the Minister of Immigration intend to make a mockery of our legal and immigration systems? Or was this intervention guided by the hope of getting a few more votes for his party in BC?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
As the member well knows, I know math is not the Conservative Party of Canada's forte.
And the budget will balance itself.
so,
These are not matters that we talk about publicly, much less on the floor of the House of Commons. Thank you.
Colleagues.
And is Chrystia Freeland doing a good job? She is the finance minister and the vice president of Canada. And she is the one that just looks like her head is just spinning when she talks. It's always like trying to drag it on, never answer a question. And maybe they should have this I thought they would always do this. When they ask a question, say, do you mind after you finish it, if you give me 5 seconds to say if you answered it or not for our listeners, because it is so frustrating. Everything is an infomercial with both of them. And that's something that I think needs to be stopped. Maybe the whole Constitution and the human rights and everything needs to be rewritten again after those two are gone, because this is just frustrating what they're doing. Anyway, let's go back to the video.